Hi empaths, welcome back to my safe space and back to Journey Through the Tarot. This week we're talking about our experience with the Wheel of Fortune. All that incredible imagery, and then we're introducing the Strength card. And that's a little bit out of order. If you'll recall, the Justice and the Strength card were interchanged in the Rider-Waite symbolism and in other decks. So I'll remind you why that is later on. This journey is inspired by Dirty and Divine, A Transformative Journey Through Tarot by Alice B. Grist. She spent a day with each card. I'm spending a week. And I'm getting a lot of the information from the Tarot History, Symbolism, and Divination by Robert M. Place. He's one of my Tarot teachers. So I'm getting a lot of information from there. And we're working with the Rider Tarot deck with the Waite-Smith symbolism. If you are looking to pick up any of those items, you can check out my Amazon store. It's linked in the description of this video. And so Happy New Year, first of all. We're looking at the Wheel of Fortune. I hope you had a great experience with the Wheel of Fortune. I'd love to know. I also have a quick announcement. I'll be a reader at an event in Burbank, California on March 21st and 22nd. So I'll link that information, or I'll include that information in the description of this video as well. The details are still finalizing, but if you're going to be in that area, or if you live in that area, I'd love for you to come and meet you there. So that's the first announcement. I think that that corresponds to the Wheel of Fortune week, as that was an opportunity. And as I was rendering last week's video, where we talked about the Hermit card and then introduced the Wheel of Fortune, as I was rendering, the app I use is called YouCut. And that app has ads in it. So as I was rendering the video, a Wheel of Fortune, I guess, game or app came up as an advertisement. And I mean, they're probably like Facebook in that they have like voice recognition software that helps collect data for ads. But that was the first sign I saw as soon as I was rendering the video before I even uploaded it. So that was the first sort of synchronicity that came in. Something else that came in is this past week has been really challenging health-wise. I feel so much better today, probably because we're going to be introducing the Strength card, and if they flow in, right? They kind of overlap. But I was feeling really weak, depressed, had a lot of stuff going on, internally, and just energy levels were really low. And it was really rough health-wise for me last week. And if you've been following the journey, I'm kind of going through a bit of a health issue that I'm healing. And a symptom of it is anemia and, iron deficiency. So this past week was really difficult with that, really challenging. But I realized it's helping me understand, it's inherited in part. So it helped me understand something that came in during meditation was I'm going through this to kind of have more understanding, compassion for my mother and what she was going through while I was growing up, and why she wasn't really able to participate in a lot of things, and why, I felt kind of emotionally abandoned at times, and she was going through this. So it's bringing understanding and illumination around that, why she couldn't be present, and why she was often irritable and tired. And I would get really frustrated and resentful and angry. Like I would be sharing parts of my day with her that I thought were exciting or that I needed support around, and she would just look really tired, like she was falling asleep, and it just made me feel so resentful and angry. Like I just felt like, she was just I thought she was putting on an act to kind of just avoid having to talk to me. So it created a lot of hurt, right? A lot of, and I made it mean something about myself. So that balance and understanding and experience, because, the Wheel of Fortune is about karma, understanding by going through the other side of something. I don't know what I would have done this week if I would have had to look after a child, that would have been very, very hard. So I can only imagine what she went through. And I can also see how this health issue is helping set me up for success, or set me up for gratitude, to be grateful for health. As I feel healthy, like as I feel more healthy today, I feel really grateful for that. We oftentimes learn through contrast, and that's something that I think I go through a lot as I learn spiritual lessons. I go through the contrast first, or not even first, but at some point in the process, as I'm processing, something, I'll go through the contrast so that I have an understanding, and then I'm able to show gratitude for health. And also I'm my doctor has me on iron supplements, and that can be challenging as you get used to it, as you adjust, as your system adjusts to that extra iron. And my stomach was not feeling well, and it can create elimination issues and things like that. And so I'm acclimating to it though. So I'm feeling stronger. I guess I'm absorbing more of it. And I feel like things are turning around. I did feel like pretty alone going through it. But and again, I think that makes me understand how my mom was feeling, as she went through this issue. And I was thinking about how health insurance doesn't cover everything. And I was thinking about how, because I was also looking back at what the Wheel of Fortune card symbolizes. And one of the things it symbolizes is gambling, like taking a risk. And it's interesting because I was thinking, oh, I guess health insurance is kind of like that, or insurance in general is kind of is gambling, in that you don't know if it's going to pay off. And it's like, although oftentimes it's mandatory to have it, and you're paying into it, it is kind of a gamble as to whether you're going to use it or not. And it's funny that I was thinking that thought and I was talking to my friend, and he was like, on the 2nd of January, I got into a bit of a fender bender, and the person that it was their fault, they kind of backed right up into me without looking and did some damage to my car, and eventually just kind of left and didn't give any information or whatever. And so he has to pay a certain amount before insurance even kicks in. And so we were thinking of it like that, of how, wow, that doesn't even, like the payoff is questionable. He pays so much in insurance, and it's just like, it's crazy. And that's, so that's one way the sort of Wheel of Fortune card comes in, because remember, it's not just great luck, good luck, although it is ruled by Jupiter, right? It is associated with planet Jupiter, and Jupiter is about expansion, and it can be good fortune as well. But it can be an expansion of other things as well, not just luck, right? It can be an abundance of anything. And as the wheel turns, this is symbolizing sort of the devil flying off, and the Sphinx rising here. So it's like the good gods rising, and evil is falling off, but it can very easily turn and the opposite be true, right? Bad luck and health issues coming up when you were completely healthy. It's sort of like the turn of the wheel, the wheel of karma, the wheel of experience. So, but in a funny way, it was empowering for him, because it's a test of his strength, and that's how it kind of leads right into strength, right? His inner strength, his resilience, his ability to manage his emotions and expectations around having to cough up that money when it wasn't even his fault. It was, just this incident that happened. I was also talking to him about during morning meditations, I'll get a lot of images and guidance and wisdom come through. And oftentimes it'll linger and I'll remember and I'll recall later on. And this week it was so fleeting. It was like the spinning of the Wheel of Fortune. It was very elusive. It would evaporate back into, and I often give this guidance that, when you get those images, when you get those creative ideas, record them, because they disappear. They kind of go back into the clay, right, to be molded again. Or they move on to the next receptive artist or, person who's seeking that information. And he was like, and I sent that to him in an audio message on Instagram, and he was like, listen to that first message you sent me back, and then watch this TED Talk. And it was Elizabeth Gilbert's TED Talk about artists and the evolution of the beliefs around creative force and creative flow and the creative process, and how we used to believe that, I think it was in Greek tradition, artists were thought to have a genius when they created something brilliant or beautiful or successful, right? They were thought to have a genius, and now we call people a genius. And so all of that expectation falls on the human, the person, instead of the spirit that they've kind of partnered or teamed up with to create this. Whatever it is. And I'm going to link that TED Talk in the description of this video. It was really profound and inspiring to me, and it kind of helped me get out of a dark place that I was in. So I'll link that so you can watch it. It's called Your Elusive Creative Genius, and it was a TED Talk. And it helped me see like creative flow as well, kind of like a wheel kind of spinning through, and we can capture the creative ideas. I think it was last week where I said I felt something culminating. I felt something coming in, and in her TED Talk, Elizabeth Gilbert talks about how that is something that creatives can experience, and someone she had known described it similarly. So I really resonated. So I want to share that with you. It was really inspiring to me. And she also talked about like how a lot of artists go through depression, and it can be very challenging. There's a lot of pressure, right, to create beautiful, meaningful work overall, like constantly. And I think that, that's not really the right thing to focus on, maybe, right? Maybe that can be harmful. Maybe that can be detrimental, and maybe it can create procrastination and prevent you from beginning. It can be a form of perfectionism. And I was thinking that as I was setting up to film this, I was like, I don't know if I'm completely prepared that it's going to be the most amazing video I've ever made, but I want to get through it because I have other things scheduled today. And and it's going to take time to render and upload, and then I have other things I want to film. So I was like, I trust in a higher power to flow through me and make sure I get the right information out, and that it flows and that it's engaging and you can pay attention and it's not so boring. And so all this stuff is forcing me to have trust in the process, right? A lot of what I do is about the process, right? It's about process, spiritual process, processing our shadow, processing our wounding. I'm very process oriented. I was also looking back and reflecting at my chaotic life in New York City when I had a house full of roommates, and I was wishing for peace. I was wishing for solitude. I was wishing for the ability to wake up and make breakfast and, make my coffee and have a morning ritual all to myself and not have to engage every single day. And now that prayer was answered. I have that. So I do have kind of an opposite experience right now. And I'm, sort of wishing to balance that back out where it's not that I am always in solitude, right? I have some kind of community as well. So that's something I've been working on manifesting for a while too. And I feel like this opportunity in California is a good start. Meeting new people, other people in the spiritual community. I feel like I, in some way, called an in. And then on Instagram, there was a New Year's pic of the Ferris wheel at, I think it's Place Bellecour in Lyon, France. And it was a big wheel, and I was like, oh, another symbol of the Wheel of Fortune. And it was for New Year's Day. And I feel very connected to France. And of course, the tarot cards, a lot of the origins of their history are French history, or art history in France. So that felt like that was a symbol. And my best friend, who's working through this process as well with the tarot cards, is finding that he's being called to let go of toxic, unfulfilling relationships. And, that is another symbol of the Wheel of Fortune card, as that devil or demon or whatever it is falls off the wheel there, right? And the snake as well. It can be a meaning when you're looking at the divination of the Wheel of Fortune is getting rid of karmic relationships, karmic connections, or those toxic ties, getting rid of those. I also forgot to announce I hit my first goal. My first goal for subscribers was 500, and I hit that, and I wanted to say thank you for helping me get there. That was my first goal. In my Business Alchemy program that I'm in with one of my mentors, Shelly Poovey, we work with tangible, measurable goals, because my goal is, supporting other people in their spiritual process and their spiritual progress and self-development, self-discovery, empowering the empath, right? Empowering sensitive people and artists, and giving information that supports that, or providing structure for you to process, right? So that can't really be measured realistically. So you come up with tangible markers. And one of those was a 500 count for subscribers. So I made that goal, and I'm very excited. So thank you for helping me make that first goal. And now my goal is 1,000. So looking to grow there so that, you know, that can be a symbol of impact, right? The impact you're having. Your success can equal your impact. So for you, if you are working towards a manifestation, manifesting something, actualizing something in your life, towards your success, have a measurable target. It can be helpful. Oh, and I also began a new series on this channel of morning meditation, morning intentions, right? Intention setting for the day, a reset for the day, helping to set an intention, send it out with sound, and to center, ground, align to highest potential, highest self, and ground down for the support and nurturing of Mother Earth, right? So we're aligned, and then also sending intentions out. So I started that series, and that's been really fun. I've been using that for myself, and they're really short videos. So it's just like a brief, and pulling an original angel card for the day and just seeing what the key word is, what the focus is. It's really fun. Check that series out and see if that's something you want to add to your morning routine. I publish it at 4 a.m. Eastern time every morning. That way, no matter what time you wake up, it's there and it's available for you in the morning. Oh, and when I announced that I would be in Burbank for this event in March, at the end of March, a good friend from college reached out who does live in California, and she lives about 20 minutes from Burbank. And she's like, you're welcome to stay here. And you know, the Wheel of Fortune is also about asking for help and also accepting and receiving support and help. And so that just happened yesterday. So that was a really cool synchronicity. So that was really nice. And I've also had friends reach out and ask for support and ask for help and guidance and wisdom. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I think that I might have been in more of a receptive state. So it was harder for me to provide. And that's never the case for me. I always feel like I'm much more comfortable giving. So that's something that just came in. Possibly, I was meant to receive this week, and that might be another reason I was so weak and felt so vulnerable, because that's a learning curve for me, and that might be something I'm learning and balancing out, is learning to accept support. Because sometimes when I don't have a lot to give, I feel like I don't have inherent value. And that's something that I have to work on. Like, I have to process that out, that irrational belief, because it creates a lot of suffering. And it really does affect relationships. So I have to look at that. And then it also disrupts relationships when I'm not able to give, when they're kind of set up with that paradigm of, you know, that's the equity in the relationship I'm giving. I'm the giver here. And when I'm not equipped to do so, it starts to fall apart. And I think that's something you have to look at, right? That's also helpful in weeding out those relationships that are a little more toxic, right? If I'm not in a place where I can give, and then the relationship falls apart, what does that say about that connection? So I think that's actually very helpful and valuable. Let's see what else. My best friend sent me a quote that I felt was very meaningful this week. It really moved him. If you could see what's coming, you wouldn't stress about what's happening. If you could see what's coming, you wouldn't stress about what's happening. I thought that was so beautiful and moving and brilliant. I got back to the gym this week, which was a difficult transition. Transitioning back to calling in the strength of my physical body and mental, right? It's a mental game too at the gym. And I wasn't quite mentally prepared to take in all the hustle and bustle at the new year. It's always a packed place, and like just after the new year. So all the loud conversations, and it was very hard for me to stay in the zone. And it was a very difficult workout because I had lost a lot of my muscle mass and I was just out of practice. But it was interesting. It was really difficult for like the first 10 minutes. And then my muscles just remembered, because I've, worked out so much, and it's something I'm just used to doing. So even a long hiatus coming back, it's like, oh yeah, this is what we do. And my body adjusted really well. And then I felt great after the workout. So I'm looking forward to making that a ritual. And that leads right into the strength card. And while I was there, I was feeling kind of sorry for myself that it was so difficult and challenging. And I was, adjusting to the bright lights and all the people talking. And I was feeling like that difficulty. And then an older gentleman walked in with a cane and began his workout. And I was like, wow, what a great reminder to have gratitude for my body, because even though it's a little bit out of practice or out of shape, it's going to bounce right back. I have full range of motion. I can walk, with no effort. It's no challenge. And it just brought me back to a place of gratitude and respect for that man who was coming to work out despite his challenge, because you could easily use that as an excuse to not go to the gym, So that was an amazing reminder too. And that led me right into strength, right into the strength card. And moving from Wheel of Fortune, which is 10 in the Rider Tarot deck, right? We're going to strength, which is 8. Because when the occult took over the symbolism, they associated each card with a zodiac sign. So strength is Leo. So that's why the order was changed, right? They replaced justice with, so justice is 11, but we're looking at strength based on the history. So that was my week with the Wheel of Fortune. What was your week like? I hope you had great experiences. Let me know in the comments. I love integrating these experiences. It really does help me understand on a deeper level. And it is one of those things where, like a gratitude practice, you look for those signs. You're looking for the synchronicity, right? You're seeking them out. You're digging for them when they're not readily available, or meditating and getting guidance that way. So it is very helpful in understanding anything more deeply, right? Anytime you're working with something, focusing on one thing for the week, for the day, right? Like the morning intention video, whatever the word for the day is, whatever we're focusing on, looking for that throughout the day, setting our day up around that, can be very, very helpful, right? And if we're looking for things to be grateful for, we're setting ourselves up to receive more and more. So that was a great week. Very enlightening. And I'm sure there was much more. I just didn't recall. Or much like the meditations and the dream symbols that came in that were just, they kind of vanished. I told my best friend, I was like, I'm just going to make coffee, and then I was thinking to myself, I'll just make some coffee and then I'll record that. I usually use my phone and I write a little note to myself about it. That's how I record the experiences. And then I'll flesh them out a little more maybe in the journal. But they were gone. They were gone when I went to record them. So, okay, so that was the Wheel of Fortune. Let's move into the Strength. Strength card. About time, right? We can all use a little more strength. I know I can. So let's look at the history of the Strength card, according to Robert M. Place. This book's amazing. If you don't already have it, I do recommend picking it up. It's in my Amazon store under the Journey Through the Tarot idea list. And that's linked in the description. So Strength. After the sobering lesson on the folly of chasing after Fortuna's rewards that was presented in the last trump, the Wheel of Fortune, we now progress to the virtue Strength, which represents the discipline and determination of a hero, the virtue Plato most identified with the soul of will. As strength is the heroic virtue, the symbols chosen in medieval and Renaissance art to illustrate this virtue are based on the stories of two famous ancient heroes who were also noted for their physical strength, Hercules and Samson. The most popular Renaissance icon of strength depicted a woman holding or breaking a column. This is a reference to the biblical hero Samson, who destroyed the temple of the Philistines by breaking its columns. We find the woman with a column in the Gringognore deck, one of the earliest hand-painted Italian decks. It is also included in printed decks such as the Rosenwald deck, circa 1500, and 16th century Florentine Minchiate, and the Metelli deck from Bologna, 1664, but it is not found in most other decks. An alternative Renaissance image of strength depicts either a strong man or a woman with a lion. This image is a reference to the pagan hero Hercules, who slew the Nemean lion in the first of his 12 labors, and wore its skin in his armor after that, as his armor after that. Although Samson also killed a lion, the feat most indicative of his story is the destruction of the temple, and the lion is more typically associated with Hercules. The hand-painted Milanese tarot decks, which are the oldest existing examples, consistently depict a lion on the strength card. The Visconti Sforza deck breaks with the pattern of depicting the virtues as allegorical females, established by the other two virtues, and depicts the male hero, Hercules, clubbing the Nemean lion. On the Carrie Yale Visconti Strength, there is an image of a beautiful woman sitting on the back of a lion and closing the lion's mouth. In common examples of woodcut decks from the end of the 15th century and beginning of the 16th century, the illustration on the strength card again shows a male hero wrestling a lion. This figure also appears to be Hercules, but the length of his hair also connects him to the legend of Samson, who believed that his strength was in his long hair. Perhaps it was intended to be a synthesis of both heroes. The Tarot of Marseille strength card depicts a woman astride a lion in the act of closing the lion's mouth, an image that seems to be derived from the Carrie Yale Visconti Tarot. Hercules was popular in medieval and Renaissance art as an embodiment of heroic virtue. In his icons, just as the Visconti Sforza Tarot, he was usually depicted as himself instead of as an allegorical woman. And as we said, it was more popular to depict the female image of strength holding a column. Perhaps this is because the images of the virtues symbolized as women were derived from the Psychomachia, an early Christian text, and the artists who created these allegorical female figures felt more at home depicting symbols associated with a biblical hero like Samson instead of a pagan hero like Hercules. The Carrie Yale Visconti and the Marseille images combine a pagan image with the Christian form and also harmonize the representation of strength with the representation of the other virtues in the Tarot. The fact that the image of strength in the Tarot of Marseille extols the exploits of a pagan hero attests to the Tarot's secular and mystical nature. Unlike Samson, Hercules actually defeated death and became divine through his labors. In ancient times, the philosophers used him as an example of moral virtue, and people prayed to him as a mystical guide and helper, like a Christian saint. The 4th century BCE, Sophist Prodicus authored a myth called The Choice of Hercules, in which Hercules faced with the Pythagorean choice of two paths. In the myth, the youthful Hercules came to a crossways where he met two women, one called pleasure and the other duty. Pleasure promised him a life of sensuality if he followed her, and duty promised him a life of labor and troubles if he followed her. Hercules chose duty, but because of that choice, he became immortal. This myth expresses the same theme that is depicted on the Lover's Trump, and this depiction of the Herculean virtue in this second act reinforces the idea that this section depicts the path of duty and virtue. And here's a historical depiction of the Strength card. So that's the history of the Strength card. Now let's get into the Waite-Smith symbolism as shown in this deck, or on this card. So the Marseille woman on the Strength trump has a hat similar to the Magician's. She is therefore given the same lemniscate in this deck. That's the infinity symbol. In the Golden Dawn's table of correspondences, this card is linked with the astrological sign of Leo, which is why Strength with her lion was placed here in what is the traditional position of Justice. Switching the positions of Strength and Justice disrupts the Platonic meaning and suggests that Waite was unaware of it. The image itself, however, is in harmony with the Platonic concept of strength. But we did switch because we were looking at the history. So the history came first, right? Coming from a family constellation background, I always acknowledge order. So order is important when we're following energy, when we're following anything. So I wanted to follow the historical order. So that's why we have Strength in this placement. Alchemically, the woman is white. She's in white. She's wearing white. The higher feminine aspect of the soul. And the lion is red, the lower physical aspect. She gently but firmly closes the lion's mouth. The higher aspect controls the physical strength, but this is accomplished through love, not force. This is shown by the lion licking the woman's hand and by the chain of roses that connects them. This card represents self-mastery through love. The distant mountain is the goal, the sacred center. These symbols are prominent in Rosicrucian imagery. A woman in white holding a symbol of love while sitting on a lion with a mountain in the distance can be found in an alchemical illustration for the golden tripod, which is one of the alchemical texts that Waite translated and included in his Hermetic Museum, which is a collection of alchemical texts. So let's get into the divination. What happens, what is the meaning if the Strength card shows up in a spread? What can be the meaning? And this might also be what we see or what comes through this week when we work with Strength. The zodiac sign of Leo, it can represent the Empress taming the lion, pride, or the beast within. Strength of will in a connection or in a person, kindness to opposition, balancing polarities, infinity symbol, unconditional love and forgiveness, power, energy, action, courage, magnanimity, which is generosity or forgiveness, especially toward a rival or less powerful person. And then according to Alice B. Grist, her intuitive meaning for the Strength card, strength is your ability to endure, to seek within yourself and find not power, but resilience and an underlying love that makes all things doable. Strength is the rock upon which so many rely, and indeed it is a place within that keeps you sane amongst the diverse difficulties of life. Strength is a quality, often misunderstood, and yet is inherent amongst us all. It is not the sole fortune of some lucky folk. It is an attribute we are born with. You cannot train your strength. You can only test it. Many times, often in cruel and unusual ways, you will be tested. It is only here that you can measure your depths. Strength is in our modern world, has become bed buddies with the likes of aggression, violence, forcefulness, and success at all costs. This is not how strength enters into our life on a daily basis. Indeed, those behaviors feel cold and needy in the light of what they are trying to achieve. You are violent due to lack in yourself, not due to strength. You are aggressive due to needing to push oneself into center stage, because deep down you feel ignored, scared, and vulnerable. True strength has no other motive. It exists from a deep inner well of love and spirit. It focuses its power on a belief that all will be well. Everything has a purpose, and that love is a healing, motivating, giving force that can cure all. Yet strength isn't hippy-dippy or trippy. It is ferocious in its desire to be there, to be a rock, to maintain connection, to nurture, to hold, to carry, to support, and to heal. The Strength card speaks to the plummeting well of our inner power, the strength to endure, to hold yourself high, and importantly, to give peace and power to others through our own inner resources. And then some other meanings for strength. Strength predicts the triumphant conclusion to a major life problem, situation, or temptation through strength of character. It is a very happy card if you are fighting illness or recovering from injury. Represents virility, inner strength, potency, vitality, confidence, self-belief, enjoying power, persuasion, influence, compassion, determination, physical strength, stamina, patience, and persistence. So that's strength, and that's what we're bringing in this week. We'll be working with strength this week. So let's use some sound to integrate the lessons that came in with the Wheel of Fortune card. I realized I was cut off somewhere a couple minutes ago. I don't know where, so I can't go back. But if something pertinent was skipped over, I'll add it to the description. Usually the descriptions of the cards are repetitive, the divination, but just so that's included here. All right, so let's get in touch with strength. You might want to close your eyes, use your breath to center and ground. Taking deep breaths, integrating the lessons that came in with the Wheel of Fortune card, moving us right into strength. And using the sound of the frosted crystal singing bowl to set the intention for those things we learned about strength, the virtue of strength, calling them in this week, calling in synchronicities and experiences that help us understand and immerse ourselves in that concept so we understand it more deeply. Beautiful. Coming back to the room. Take your time. So I look forward to a week with the Strength card. I do feel like that Wheel of Fortune sure did usher in an appreciation and a summoning of that inner strength. I think it flows right through. That's why I'm glad I adhered to the historical order. I think that it flows more naturally. The energy flows when you respect the order. So thank you for subscribing to the channel. Like the videos so I know you're watching, and comment with your own experiences if you feel called to. Thank you for following along with this experience, and I hope you're enjoying learning more deeply about the symbolism here and the divination of the Tarot, and the history is interesting to you. I know I find it very fascinating. Thanks for helping me get to 500. I'm excited to, for the next goal of 1,000 subscribers in this channel, and really excited for the Strength Week. So I will see you in the next video. Bye, Empath.